Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. And as you'll find out this evening, as regular listeners of this program, I'm certainly working my way through that wonderful Free State cricket team that I spent so much time with way back in the 80s. We've had Alan Donald, we've had Mickey Arthur, we've had Rudy Steyn, and today, at last, common sense has prevailed all the way from Bloemfontein to head up at the hallowed grounds of Newlands, Corrie van Zyl. Corrie, welcome to the program. Thank you for your time. Nice to chat again.
Thanks, Louis. Yeah, very nice to be on the program. Thank you for inviting me.
It's great to have you. Let's go back all the way, shall we, to the early 80s and those wonderful days of that incredible Free State cricket team that did so well, of which you were a part of. And if I may say, so many of those players in that side have gone on to stay in cricket in one way or another.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times I actually think about those years and why those, the Free State team was so successful in those years. And a lot of those things then come up in terms of, just our leadership that we had, their opinion of the team and how it was made up and, why they thought that it was successful. But yeah, as you say, a lot of them still in cricket. Yeah, and here I am in Newlands where we used to compete fearlessly on this fantastic field, something that we always felt was such an iconic place. And here I am today, CEO. So it's a fantastic privilege.
Yeah, we'll talk more about your new role, or relatively new role at least. And we go back to those days, and it wasn't just the players, and forgive me, Omar Henry, for not mentioning that you're on this program all the time, because you're also part of that whole setup, and Omar listens to us all the time. The likes of the Henry Matthews and, of course, Evie Cronje and Arthur Turner. I guess a lot of that has been an influence, if I may say, in your progression from player to coach to administrator and now CEO.
No, absolutely. I just look at the work that Evie, I can never talk about Mr. Cronje or Mr. Evie Cronje. I have to talk about Evie.
Yeah.
Because that was what Evie was. He was such almost like a father to us all there when we started off Free State cricket in the days where we had a 15,000 Rand sponsorship from Kelly Tyres. And Arthur was appointed as the first CEO of Free State Cricket. That was a bold move to do. It was normally run by Evie from his office at the sports office in Free State University. But it's those humble beginnings, I think, that sort of laid the ground for something special, because from those humble beginnings, we wanted to impress, we wanted to show to the world that we could play cricket. And that sort of inspired a new culture of doing things, which then eventually sort of builds people, builds character, builds people, and all of those lessons that you've learned then bodes well for future administration and management and so forth.
And also in a region that was more synonymous with Springbok rugby and rugby players and the Free State rugby team. And also, I mean, as I was mentioning when I spoke to Alan Donald a week or two ago, just remembering, flying in on a Thursday for a 3-day game that had a break on a Sunday. No aeroplanes flew out of Bloemfontein on a Saturday afternoon. You had to wait till a Monday. I mean, it was so much stacked against the success of Free State cricket, and yet everybody seemed to gel together and prevail so well.
Yeah, no, you're bringing back memories here, Louis. It's but it is exactly that. It's because of that uniqueness. And again, I'm bringing us back to that base we started off with. We've always wanted to play cricket. Cricket was Free State cricket. I can remember when I was sitting in the scoreboard there with Jabbar Strydom, and we were scoring at Free State when Robbie East and Neil Rosendorff and Mike Buss were playing for Free State. We were loving the game. So it started there already, Raymond Leroux, Darryl Leroux, eventually we played with them. But the point is we started there, our love started there, but then we wanted to progress that love and take Free State to places where it has never been before,
Yeah, and of course, a lot of the Ramblers Club was involved, and that, of course, was also when Free State was B section in those days. Topic we'll discuss in a moment, where we had A section and B section, and we had so much 3-day in those days cricket, which obviously was because we didn't have international competition for a while, and it certainly in the 80s we didn't. The game's changed a lot now, Corrie, a lot since then, hasn't it?
Yeah, incredible, and it's changing every day, not just, it's obviously gone from where we were from a Free State perspective, where we went into an A section, coming from that B section, as you said. I remember that transition from that, my last season at B. I remember that year I took 50 wickets in six games, and that sort of put me on the map. But it also, at the same time, Alan Donald just started playing, and so all of a sudden there was these players coming from the Free State that sort of put Free State a little bit on the forefront. And then Doc Ali Bacher saw the potential in us, and the next season we were in the A section. So, and that sort of gave us, the not professional, because we by no means we were professional at that stage, but we were professional, I think, in our attitude, but not professional in terms of receiving payment for play. And then obviously the game has gone into professionalism. That's changed the game. And then the leagues started happening. Let's get to the point where we got back into international cricket. That changed everything. I remember 92 when Clive Rice and his team, Alan Donald and Hansi and them, went over to India. And then from there, from international cricket was just amazing. All the opportunities there. Now it's leagues, and how that changes the whole landscape of cricket. So cricket is ever evolving, but it's come a long, long way.
You've taken up the new role, I say new role, it's been a couple of months now, as Chief Executive Officer of Western Province Cricket. I guess in a way, a union that needs to be in a rebuilding process. Am I fair in saying that? Needs a bit of help?
Louis, I think it needs a lot of help.
I'm being kind now. I'm being kind.
Yeah. I'm being honest. It needs a lot of help. This is one of the reasons why I actually took the job, because I came into this job as an interim put here by Cricket South Africa to just sort of guide us through the newest test match and the SA20 that was going to be delivered here at the start of the season, start of the year. And then when we sort of CEO process unfolded and we didn't really get the candidates that we wanted. Well, the one we wanted did not accept. And I thought, I've then realized what this place, I always knew what it means for cricket in South Africa. But when you look at the potential of this place, this ground, what it means to the community, what it means to South Africa, not just the Western Province, Cape Town community, but what it means for South Africa. And then the potential, when you look at this ground, and as I'm sitting here in my office, I'm looking at the ground as I speak to you, and I'm saying, how can you not make this a success? But it's not going to be an easy journey, Louis. It's going to be a tough journey, but we need help. We need a lot of help.
Yeah. It's interesting because, Corrie, we're about the same age, and I grew up watching cricket at Newlands, getting punished by my father for bunking school and watching cricket there and watching the great Eddie Barlow, who you and I had a lot of contact with for years. And it was kind of like every Cape Townian young lad's dream was to one day play on that iconic cricket field. Is that still the case in the Western Province area, do you think?
I hope it is. For me, I certainly hope that is the case. And if it's not, we need to rejuvenate that sort of hunger, that sort of pride to be part of this. And so to me, I think it is. It might be a little bit latent. It might be lying underneath surface, and we need to bring it up again. But I still believe deep down everybody wants to still play on this ground. But I also think that people want to come and support at this ground, but people also want to be part of a ground that is beautiful and that is, how can I say, it's just neat and it looks like the ground that it should be, And to be brutally honest, it doesn't at this stage. And it's one of our goals is to make this, one of the most professional facilities in the world, not just in South Africa. But that's going to take, again, as I say, that's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of money. And so it's a tough job ahead, but something that we want to take on.
Yeah, look, the scenery and the mountains and everything around it are beautiful, they're natural, but that actual cricket ground itself, and of course the old lady across the road from you that's currently growing weeds, the rugby stadium, can't really help. But you talk about the crowds, that's never been a problem at Newlands. I mean, you've always had, especially for international cricket matches, I mean, the crowds flock in there for the Betway T20, the crowds flock in there. What do you think when you dissect what's happened over the last decade or so? What do you think the main reason is, and what is it that you're going to try and do to improve on that?
Yeah. So I think you've hit the nail on the head in that there's always been support in the Western Province, and we saw it even in the Benson Majors Day. When I talk about domestic cricket now, there's always been that support. I felt that when you come down to Cape Town, you're always going to be playing in front of a crowd, because Cape Town were I've always seen them as very knowledgeable, spectatorship. And you also knew there's a lot of them that would come and watch the game. Obviously, that landscape has changed as well. The domestic product, I want to say it's not what it used to be, but the SA20 has given us another domestic product that is so successful, and it is such a great day out, if I could call it that. We, in a way, competing with that. International cricket, again, is another level. It's international cricket. So people want to come out and watch that. So we need to just see how do we get the people that are there, obviously are there, to come and watch cricket, to come and watch domestic Western Province playing the Titans like they used to, So it's the landscape has changed, times have changed, but we know that the people are there. There's also obviously other entertainment, and you know what, Louis, in the past you had your rugby season, and you had a cricket season. Now you have a season that is just like it's all over. It's not one or the other. So those are all things that impact.
And also, I think you don't mention or haven't yet mentioned it in the days gone by. You could see Corrie van Zyl, Alan Donald, Rudy Steyn, Mickey Arthur, Omar Henry playing for South Africa and playing for Free State. Now you kind of have two different teams. You've got a situation where you've got players playing for the Cape Town-based franchise side in the T20, Betway T20, and then you've got one-day cricketers and you've got four-day cricketers. You've got the international cricketers, Jacques Kallis, Hashim Amla, all of those guys would play for Western Province, and you could come and watch them when those days, the Cobras. Now you don't always see those players on a four-day pitch in South Africa playing cricket over a weekend.
No, I think maybe I don't think it's quite like that. I think you still find the Carl Verreyners and the Tony de Zorzis playing, David Beddingham's, playing for Western Province in our competitions. I think what is also happening is there's, when you in the past you've had a Protea team or South African team that was almost like built around 12 to 14 players. And they almost played the whole season, whereas now you have a test squad and a one-day squad, and there's a lot more players in and out of those squads, which means there's a lot of players taken out of the domestic game. But you still have Proteas players playing for the Western Province, and you still have the Brevises and just to name a few, but you still have those international players playing for Western Province in these domestic games. I think what we need to do is ensure that the Kyle Verreyners and the Tony de Zorzis and the David Bedinghams build their profiles a little bit more in terms of, so that we get the spectators, the community to understand the quality of those players. Because I think it's unfair to say that, the Jacques Kallises and the Hashim Amlas are not playing here anymore. But we have new Jacques Kallises, we have new Hashim Amlas.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you bowled a few Yorkers and bouncers in your time. I'm going to toss one at you. Why do you think the landscape has changed and South African spectators, not just at Newlands, let's be perfectly honest, the Wanderers has a policeman, two dogs and an ice cream seller for four-day cricket, and as do most of the grounds around the country. Why do you think that is? What do you think South Africa, are South African fans too spoilt on television, maybe?
No, I think it's a combination of a lot of things, that being one. I mean, there's so much television, so much sport on television, and it's not just South African sport anymore. It's just sport all over the world. So that's one part of it. The other part is, there's so many other of being entertained these days. People's attitude has changed over years. So I think to sort of put it on one aspect is wrong, if I could call it that. But it's certainly things that we need to understand very well in order to get those people back in here again. So what would they come and do here? Why would they want to come here? So we'll have to ask those questions a lot more, because in the past people just came here because of cricket. We have to compete with other sports, compete with other methods of entertainment, and see how we can still get people here.
Yeah, it's interesting because, as I mentioned earlier on in the interview, as a kid, all I wanted to do was come to Newlands. Whether there was cricket on, or in those days there sometimes used to be hockey on, or whatever, I just wanted to be at Newlands. And how do you get people, again, $1 million question, to actually want to just come to the iconic stadium itself and say, I was there?
No, I think part of it is just putting Newlands out there again, making people aware of. Then those who are already aware, making them proud of it, so that they want to come back and just be part of it. When it's sad when you hear people coming from a test match or so and saying bad things, negative things about Newlands, because that doesn't bode well for bringing people back here. So you want to make sure that it's a great experience when they do come to Newlands. There's been a lot of development at Newlands. I don't know if you know about the new business park. Yeah. So that has brought its own challenges. But at the same time, it's also a good addition to the whole Newlands precinct. But at the end of the day, we need to make people proud of this place. And when they do come here, they must have such a great experience that they want to come back.
Yeah, you talk about that new business park. I know I'm going back a long time. I remember watching Stephen Bruce hit a six right through the roof of the scoreboard at that end of the ground. Perhaps a little bit of the planes and the railway stand and the Oaks kind of has disappeared a little bit through commercialism. But I guess to bring in the money, you need to put bums in seats, and that's the only way to do it?
Yeah, I suppose so. I do believe that in some instances we've, and this is not Newlands specific, I'm talking about around South Africa. Yeah. We've created almost in a way white elephants, that now we are saying, okay, so we've created this, so how do we fill this? Because all of a sudden it's not filled anymore, so how do you fill this? But sort of saying, you've got this, now you need to say, okay, how do we fill this again? And how do we think differently of filling this again, so that this can become commercially viable, number one, and number two, still give people the experience of a Newlands, So that's going to be the challenge.
So you're looking out your window. I must be honest, the last sight I saw of Newlands Cricket Ground looked very similar to the Newlands swimming pool. What's it look like now with all the weather that we've had here in the Cape?
Yeah, that's an interesting that video went viral that day it rained, and and apparently I was getting this information, and last year when there was less rain but also a couple of violent storms, it looked similar, and but that water remained on the field for a day or two, which then brought a lot of fungi and so on the field, which then created a field that didn't look too good last year when we in the summer. This year, on that day, later that afternoon, the field was fine. It was 100% drained. And the reason for that is we've just recently upgraded the draining system, put some water pumps in it so that it just pumps the water out the precinct. And so that has worked effectively. So at the moment, it looks beautiful. It looks like it's actually working. We are confident that the field's going to look well this season.
Yeah, we look forward to it. Of course, you guys took a lot of criticism for the test match earlier this year, or the New Year's test match, which these days doesn't start on New Year's Day anymore, starts on the 3rd. But I guess everybody, myself included, wants to see a 5-day cricket match going to the last session of the last day, but it doesn't always happen that way. And a bit of unfair criticism, if I may say, levelled at the ground.
Again, obviously took a hard look at ourselves, after. It must also be said that there's very few test matches these days in the way that cricket is being played these days that last 5 days. There's a lot more results and a lot less draws, which is exciting for people. But you want to go at least 4 days, So we've learned a lot of lessons from that, and but at the same time, it's not always just the pitch. There's other factors that also contribute, but at the end of the day, we are in charge of the pitch, so we have to look at what it is that we had to do to ensure that something like that doesn't happen again. It doesn't mean that the next test match can't finish in 3 days, because the one at Centurion finished in 3 days, and the one in the West Indies recently finished in 3 days. So it's just because it was 1.5 days that was a bit unacceptable, I think.
Yeah, listen, this is me being critical. I don't think these guys, half of them, know the difference between a white ball and a red ball these days. I think they all want to go for lunch on day 3 and have a beer. Okay, let's just talk about, we're a couple of days away from the start of September. You would never dream that if you lived in Cape Town that we're into spring. But we're just less than a month away from the Cricket South Africa T20 Challenge, and the ground will be open again to spectators and to cricket. Are you ready?
We're ready. We're ready. We started with our, selling tickets. The marketing campaign has started. We're ready. I'm going to, just with our marketing commercial manager, we want to start on Monday, which is 27 days. I mean, we've got our plans in place. That's not about, but to actually start on 27 days before the 29th. So, yeah, Louis, we're ready and excited at the same time, We've got a few challenges because we've got some building construction going on here at the moment. Luckily not in the construction business, so we need to just concentrate on what needs to happen on the field. But the team is practicing, the team is preparing and getting ready for the new season.
Well, we absolutely look forward to it. And I think anybody, irrespective of who they support, wants to see, like a strong Western Province, a strong, let's call them Transvaal, the Lions, because the strength in our domestic cricket is what's going to help our international cricket, which, with respect, and I know you coached the team for a while, does need a little bit of help, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, listen, the strength of our domestic competition is going to be shown out on the international front. So that to me is a given. And therefore, as you correctly said, we have to have it's one of our cricket imperatives as Cricket South Africa. And when I talk about Cricket South Africa, I'm talking about all of us, all the members together form Cricket South Africa. And one of the imperatives is a competitive domestic cricket structure. So we are trying to work on that, and we are continuously looking at the strength of the domestic product, because we understand that keeps us in the top 3 of world cricket. If we're not in the top 3 of world cricket, then people like India, Australia, England don't want to play us anymore, and we can't afford that.
Corrie van Zyl, as a staunch Western Province fan, there's no bias in my next comment. Let's see Newlands back up there. And what I'm so glad about is that you're also in it for the long haul. You signed, for 5 years? So it's not like you've decided to come in and take the riches of the beautiful mother city and go back to Bloemfontein. Thank you for taking up the job. And I look forward to perhaps bumping heads, shaking hands, because I'm still around. I still love going to the beautiful old ground, even though I might not necessarily always be in the commentary box. Although I don't like sitting in the stands. I prefer to work when I'm there. Corrie, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure, Louis. Thanks for having me.
That's tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. The Chief Executive Officer of Western Province, Newlands, the absolute hallowed grounds of Newlands, where some of the absolute greatest cricketers of all time have scored runs, taken wickets, taken catches, and entertained many, many thousands of people over the years. That's tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. No bias here. Until next time, be nice to each other, and bye for now.